Welcome to the Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Stephanie Pereira, and I am currently completing my Bachelor of Business and specializing in hotel and resort management. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. In particularly, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians on the land which we now call Sydney. I would also like to pay my respect to elders both past and present.
Thank you. My name is Max, and I'm a final year Bachelor of Business student majoring in International Hotel and Resort Management. Our guest leader today is Mr. Gaylord Lamy, the General Manager of the Langham, Sydney. With over 20 years of experience, Mr. Gaylord is a veteran of the hospitality industry with extensive experience spanning food and beverage as well as hotel operations. Originally from France, Mr. Gaylord earned a degree in food and wine service from the Versailles-based Lycée Tacoma and a second degree in bartending from the Lycée Auguste Escoffier in Cergy-Pontoise. Mr. Gaylord's dedication to experiencing and learning other cultures has taken him to Hong Kong, North America, and now Sydney, Australia. Mr. Gaylord first joined Langham Hospitality Group in 2004 at the Eaton Hotel in Hong Kong. He was then appointed the Director of Food and Beverage at the Langham Boston and then promoted to the Director of Operations at the Langham Chicago, prior to his current appointment as the General Manager at the Langham Sydney. Interviewing Mr. Gaylord today is Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School's Associate Dean and Academic Director, Associate Professor Simon Pawson. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, and a big welcome to our Leadership Speaker Series. A welcome to our live studio audience, to our students who are watching us from our Lura campus, our students who are watching us from our Flinders Street campus in Melbourne, and of course, wherever you may be watching us in the world. Gaylord, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you this afternoon, and I must say for me, this is a personal pleasure because I spent 4 very happy years in the 90s at your hotel. It wasn't a Langham hotel then, it was the Observatory Hotel, but an absolutely fabulous property. And of course, before we start, some further congratulations, because I note in 2019, you have won 2 awards at the Tourism Accommodation Australia Awards, those awards being Outstanding Achievement in Training, and one of your staff members, who's the Marketing and Public Relations Executive, Melissa Davies, and also an alumni from Blue Mountains Hotel School, won the Hotel Industry Rising Star Award. So our sincere congratulations for these awards. A great achievement for yourself and, of course, the hotel and your team. So today I want to really talk specifically about hotel leadership. I want to talk about you as an outstanding hotel leader, and for all of our students, gain a further insight into really what makes an effective hotel and what makes an effective hotel general manager. And I think the best way to tackle this is to divide it into 3 components. And I think first we'll talk about your early years in the industry. Then, of course, yourself as a general manager, so more a day in the life. And then finally, we'll wrap up by talking about yourself as an inspiration to others within the industry. So a good place to start is, where did your passion come from? So, you know, when you first decided, I want to be a hotelier, where did that passion come from?
Right. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here, really. I've been looking forward to the invitation after my almost 4th year here in Sydney now. But to answer your question, it's kind of a funny story, actually. One day I watched this movie called Cocktail with Tom Cruise, right? And true story, finished watching the movie and I said, you know what, I want to be a bartender. And literally that's where it all started. And looked for schools back in France where they had bartending degrees and etc. And of course you had to graduate first through other schools. So that's why I went to Tacoma, in Versailles, next to Paris. And additionally, my parents used to own a bar too, from when I was very young until for about 10 years. So I got a taste of what the hospitality industry was from a very young age.
So really a French Tom Cruise. That's
right, that was my dream.
That's what you're telling us. And of course, did you take the initial road into hospitality following in those sort of bartending footsteps?
I did, but I think what was made the big difference for me was, everyone I encountered in my school career, if you will, or my scholarship and my working career, where I encountered so many people who were great ambassadors of the industry and who really became my mentors. And so that's how my love and passion for the industry grew.
Tell me, when you first decided, yes, you wanted to be a hotelier, what was the reaction from your family and friends and supporters? Were they supportive, or did they have questions around why did you want to do that versus something else, or maybe another career path?
Well, my family was pretty open and receptive to it because they were themselves in the industry, but otherwise all my friends and other family members would have been like, do you want to work weekends, really? So that was there was a bit of mixed emotion, but overall everyone was extremely supportive, which helped me become successful in my career.
So at what age did you enter the industry?
16.
At 16.
Yes.
And tell us about, and probably a little bit of detail here for our audience, tell us about what your first job was. So take us through that first position.
So my first job, I had a teacher at school who was of great support, and basically I started my industry placement when I was 16, and I got to work for Cartier, the famous jeweler in France, and I got to work for the head office. They had their own corporate restaurant at the head office, and basically they had a team of chefs and servers that worked the restaurant. And my first day on the job, I arrived and they put me in the dish room with pies and pies of plates. But again, with the exposure to luxury and the team that was there, I ended up having a great time.
Joe, it's really interesting what you've just shared with us, because now I've had the absolute privilege of interviewing quite a few hotel general managers, and I've asked them the same question. Where did they start? What was their first job? And most of our general managers that we have interviewed have said exactly the same thing. They've started from the ground and worked their way up. How important is it for a hotelier, somebody who wants a leadership career in hotels, to really have a grounded, fundamental understanding of how a hotel operates? And really that can only be achieved from starting at those operative level positions.
Well, I'd say it's crucial, but every individual is different. But for me personally, I believe that you're not able to be a good leader unless you understand how to lead, and for that you have to understand who the people are, who the colleagues are, and what do they have to do, what's their daily goal, basically. So the fact that I've been able to, wash dishes, make beds, greet guests, check them in or whatnot, I understand better, how to be, I hope, a good general manager today. So I would say it's definitely crucial and necessary.
Tell us, when you first started in the industry, and we are a very quickly evolving, rapidly changing industry, but what was the industry like when you started?
Also, great question. I think in one way I want to say I was very lucky because I started in food and beverage, clearly actually in restaurants where they were not even attached to hotels yet. And so I got to start in the industry where it was what you would call the old school French style of ruling the kitchen, where the chefs had pots and pans flying through, and it was definitely more regimental than it is today. Of course, things like social media and school involvement were very different than they are today. But I think the guests also have changed a lot. The reason I say this is because, even just 10 years ago, I could tell you just looking in the street who was a five-star hotel guest. But now I can't, because 10 years ago you would have looked at someone in a black suit, wearing a black tie, coming into the hotel in a black car, with a, just a carry-on suitcase, you think, oh, maybe that is a 5-star hotel guest, or, just by the way they were dressed or they were behaving. But today, a 5-star hotel guest can be someone wearing jeans and sneakers, and you would have no idea. So I think the clientele is what's changed the most.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more also about your personal mentors and inspirations when you started in the industry. I mean, for me personally, when I started at the Regent Sydney, Ted Wright was the general manager of the Regent Sydney, and an absolute inspiration for anybody who was aspiring to be a hotelier, a superb hotelier. At the Observatory Sydney, Patrick Griffin was the GM and another superb hotelier. So a great mentor for me to actually learn from. So what about your mentors?
Well, I've had many. I could start a big list of names, but I think one that particularly stands out would be Mr. Serge Denis. He was the general manager of the used to be called the Meridian in Boston, then became the Langham Boston. But he is definitely someone who has seen me, entering the industry as a bartender, and is a big part of who I am today.
You've also had an international experience. You haven't just focused your career on one country and let your career develop within that country. How important for a hotelier is international experience? So moving beyond your comfort zone, and of course your comfort zone is the city which you were brought up with, where you live.
Right. Well, again, just like understanding every aspect of the job is important to the colleagues, I think understanding the worldwide cultures is also very important. And just like another one of my mentors always said, Mr. Bob Vandernoort, who is actually our regional VP for Langham, Europe and North America, the more culture you expose yourself, the better you'll be as a general manager, because your guests will be coming from all these different cultures and countries.
What advice would you give to any young hotelier aspiring to move into your position in relation to a sensible career path to follow, and of course based on your own experience?
Never stop learning. That's the number one thing. We have a value with Langham that's it says better every day, and it literally is something you have to take to heart. Basically, try to go to work every single day asking yourself, how can you do yesterday but a bit better?
Do you think it matters which operational department somebody should actually focus on, or is it more important for them to have a rounded experience of how the hotel actually operates? Or, look, I'm going to stick to food and beverage and let my career develop with food and beverage and then obviously move into a leadership role? Or should I think about focusing more on rooms division, sales and marketing, food and beverage and so on?
I think there's no magic recipe here. There's no one that's better than the other. I mean, I did 80% of my career came through food and beverage, and I think the thing to keep in mind is just be open-minded. And because you're F&B doesn't mean you can't understand rooms or HR or revenue management. You just have to be able to again, learn these other topics. But there's no better way than one or another.
Given your experience so far, what do you think are fundamental skills and knowledge a general manager needs to be effective running a property today?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
It is, isn't it?
Look, I think again is the ability to learn from each other, but even from people who work not just for you but with you. Be open-minded. Have a sense of leadership rather than managing only. I think is a key point. Lead by example instead of telling people just what to do.
Which I think leads nicely into my next question. What does leadership mean for you? So if I say, I'm not going to ask you to define leadership, but for you, what does that word leadership mean?
To me, leadership is someone that it's something that people will follow instead of something that people will execute. So if you're a good leader, people will follow you. If you're a bad leader, they won't. But you could be a bad manager or a good manager. You can't really gauge it. But leadership is something that people will follow.
I want to move on now to yourself as a general manager, and obviously the general manager of the Langham Sydney. And I did note the other day, and I think it was LinkedIn I was reading about this, that the Langham Hotel is the preferred hotel of the Pussycat Dolls.
That is right, yes, absolutely, we're proud
So
of
another
it. Yeah.
accolade, and well done.
Thank you.
And certainly over the years, you have had some incredible celebrities choose the Langham Hotel as their preferred hotel in Sydney. And that is obviously because of all the hard work of yourself and your team to really, produce an experience that your guests would be comfortable staying in, especially celebrities. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
But tell us about your first few months as a general manager. Was it all glitz and glamour and cocktail parties and the GM's cocktail party on Tuesday night, or was it actually hard work? Was it scary?
It was hard work because it was also my first GM role, right? Not only I wanted to make sure I proved myself to the team, but also all safety nets were gone. I think that was the biggest realization I had, that, oh, wait a second, so now I don't have anyone else here on property who's going to help me cope with the challenges.
You're it.
Yeah, right.
You're
and
it.
of course, you have a team of people surrounding you. But I think that was the biggest moment where I realized, wait a moment, no more safety nets, and you had to really learn how to use engaged relationship with the head office team versus the team on the grounds.
What do you love the most about your role?
That it changes every day. It's impossible to get bored in this role, but also it's the touch you can have with people and colleagues. I mean, what makes the difference is when I get to come to work every day and leave, and you've made a difference with a colleague or with a guest. I think that's the most satisfying.
It's funny you should say that. Myself and my colleagues are also often asked the same question. After all these years, why are we still in hospitality and tourism? And the response remains the same because every single day is different, unlike the banking sector or the finance sector where you come to work and essentially you do the same job and you have the same routine. In a hotel, that is certainly not the case. Every day is different and you really have the opportunity to make such a positive difference, not only to the people that you lead, but also your guests. And that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
That is a great thing. Can you take us through a day in the life? So talk us through, you can use yesterday as an example if you want, or the day before. But talk us through a day in the life of Gaylord as the general manager of the Langham Hotel.
Sure.
What time does your day start? What do you do first? What time does it finish? What happens in the middle of the day?
Right. Okay. Well, look, one thing for sure is I don't like routine. So you'll never catch me coming in at the same time of the day every day just because I take the same ferry or the same train or I drive at the same time. So you'll see me coming in at all different times. Of course, I always make sure to be here before 9 a.m. because it is our scheduled what we call showtime, which is our pre-opening day briefing with the team. And we call it showtime because it's literally before getting on stage in front of guests. So every Langham in the world calls this special briefing at 9 o'clock or before their shift. If they're in the restaurant, showtime.
I love that. So it's not just the morning briefing that a lot of hotels say, we'll meet at 9 o'clock as the morning briefing. We'll talk about the VIPs and so on.
Correct.
For you, it's showtime.
It is showtime.
I love that.
But before that, I've already been able to, walk through the hotel. I make a point. I love going up to all colleagues, shake hands, say good morning, and say, how is everything today? How are we looking? Just gauge a little bit of a pulse check of the operational team, I should say. Then we go to showtime, and showtime is about, yes, we highlight the VIPs of the day. Yes, we talk about yesterday's incidents or challenges and how do we address them today. But most importantly, we close by saying, what are we going to do better today than we did yesterday? And it becomes a bit of a dialogue. Those meetings are no more than 15, 20 minutes. But it's about motivating the team, reminding of our working culture.
And I just picked up on something you said, and you mentioned that we look at yesterday and we talk about what we can do better. So reflective practice. In the world of academia, that's exactly what we call it, reflective practice, which is so critically important for anyone in a leadership role, that you're able to reflect on what's happened and look for improvements. And it seems that you do this day in, day out as part of Showtime.
It is, absolutely. I mean, and it is regimental, again, something we do religiously every single day, 7 days a week, even on days where I'm not here or one of my senior leaders isn't here, the team continues to do this. And of course, we do one 9 o'clock with the leadership team, but then every colleague gets through a show time during the day before their shift in the restaurant at night or in housekeeping daily or before turn down, doesn't matter.
Now, a slight segue, and I'm going to have to ask you this question simply because of what you're sharing with us. I do recall when I was at the observatory, our general manager, Patrick Griffin, at 9 o'clock also in the Globe Bar, we had a briefing with all the department heads, and we ran through the guest list, all the arrivals for the day, and all the special requests. And boy, I can tell you there were some very interesting special requests. Yes. What is the oddest special request that you've received from a guest?
I mean, it goes all the way from having a treadmill in the room to, basically converting a whole bedroom into a gym, so they don't have to go to their own gym. I mean, it really, like,
but you've got a gym downstairs, you've got a marvelous gym downstairs.
Some people, if they can afford it, of course, they like to have the convenience of having that. And then we often find out that the treadmill is really just to put clothes on.
They're not going to use it, they're just going to hang their laundry on it.
No, but it's, we have various requests. We're also a pet-friendly hotel. So we actually get lots of requests for people's pets.
Tell us more about that. So how does that work? So you're a pet-friendly hotel.
Right.
Do you market, do you advertise it's a pet-friendly hotel? How does it work?
Yeah, so all pets are welcome. I mean, mostly, obviously, dogs, right? We have a weight limit on the dogs because we can have too impressive of dogs in the hotel.
Of course.
But we have a whole pet program where a pet will check in and we'll have a special dog beds, dog bowls, and we actually have a special in-room dining menu for dogs as well. So some other odd requests are we have dietary restrictions for dogs.
Would you say this is all part of guest experience, which is going to take me into my next question, but
yes, it's definitely all part of the guest experience. I mean, people who have their traveling pets are, they basically consider them part of the family. So we thought, why not? It's almost like the dogs bringing their human to the hotel sometimes.
Any other pets or just dogs? Have you seen any other?
Dogs. I mean, we've had maybe the occasional cat here and there, but
mostly
99.9% dogs. Yeah.
Talking about guest experience, and Gaylord, you'll know this as well as I think we all know this. If we go back 10, 15 years ago, hotels relied on a point of differentiation, predominantly on their tangibles. So, if we take the Westin as an example, they focused on the heavenly bed. And then we have other hotels differentiating themselves on the produce or what they're putting in the guest rooms or their toiletries, whether they're using sort of luxury toiletries and so on. But of course, other hotels can very quickly copy that and you've lost your competitive advantage. Recently, as an industry, we've started to focus a lot more on the importance of experience and guest experience as a key differentiating factor and also something that can give your hotel a competitive advantage. How important is this to the Langham Hotel, and what do you actually do in relation to creating a unique guest experience?
Well, every Langham, of course, is different because of their location, their country, etc. But I would say, as a brand, as a company, something we've actually recently relaunched or launched, I should say, is our new brand campaign. And it's all about celebrate the everyday. And it's literally about creating those experiences for guests. And basically, we're telling everyone, you don't have to come to a hotel for any specific occasion, whether it's a wedding, anniversary, birthday, or whatnot. You can just come just because. And we'll create an experience for you for every level. From the moment you arrive in the hotel to the moment you check out, or if you just come to the bar or to the restaurant for a meal.
Okay. Which, again, I think relates to change and disruption very much. And why I say that is certainly the industry, and if we look at the last 10 years, change and disruption has been paramount. We've seen boutique and design hotels grow quickly and some incredibly unique concepts in relation to accommodation. So given your experience working in this region but also working internationally, What are some of the key trends that you have seen, or also I think the key changes, that's probably a better way to put it, that you've seen occur in this region, not only to hotels, but also how guests are changing?
I think one of the biggest topics right now would be sustainability. We see a lot of changes being done there, a lot of new initiatives being put together from hotels, whether they're fun or a bit less fun, I should say. But like, right now, moving completely away from plastic is a big one. For us at the Langham, we've done something a bit fun. Is, for example, we wanted to get rid of all takeaway coffee cups, and so we've put those keep cups in all guest rooms that guests can use during their stay. And if they go to the restaurant and get their coffee out of those cups, they get a special price to encourage sustainability. We've just started obviously looking at the menus and soaps we use and amenities in the hotel rooms. But that's, I would say, right now one of the big topics is sustainability.
Do you think this is also from a leadership perspective, and I'm going to go a little bit beyond sustainability and talk more about social and environmental responsibility. Right. Do you think this is becoming more and more important for a general manager to focus on in relation to hotel operations?
Yeah, it's 100% very important. I mean, we take it as a priority. I mean, it's part of our key performance indicator goals that we have. We actually have a department at the head office level called Connect, who that actually oversees that and takes the lead and reveals the initiatives.
Certainly, I'm seeing, and I think we're all seeing, social environmental responsibility becoming more and more important, not only in the tourism sector, but right across most sectors. For us at Torrens University, it's something that we take very seriously. Literally, it is inbuilt. In other words, our ethical and our moral approach to business is inbuilt in every single subject that we deliver here, because we too also believe it is it is just such an important concept, an important factor in developing our leaders of tomorrow. So I'm really pleased to hear there is synergy between what's actually happening in the university sector around, and especially with Torrens University, around developing leaders with a deep understanding of the importance of social and environmental responsibility, and also what is happening in the industry at the moment.
Which we promote that with guests and colleagues as well. I mean, it becomes a selling point, or even like a reason for employment point as well. So.
Which I think also then leads me into talking to you about our employees, so people that you actually lead. In Australia, it's no secret that hotels still have quite a high turnover rate in relation to staff, especially operational staff. What do you think are the ingredients for a good staff culture within a hotel?
Well, sustainability is a good one. I mean, our colleagues want to be part of something rather than just come in and earn a paycheck. They want to be part of an organization and be leading by example and showing that want to be proud of who they work for. So that's key. Of course, offering a good professional and personal life balance is a key ingredient. But I think overall the industry needs to continue promoting the industry as being a great one, and that there's so many opportunities that can come from it, especially for young professionals that want to travel the world and want to do something completely different, step out of their comfort zone a little bit.
And I'm glad you used the word young professionals, not so much the young, but the professionals, yes, because really, hotel management is not something that somebody can just wake up one day and do. It takes years to learn the craft. It certainly is a very specific skill, and a specific skill set is required for it. Education plays a fundamental role, and of course yourself being well educated and then having that international experience has contributed towards your leadership. So therefore, I think it's important that we do consider hoteliers as professionals with very specific skills and expertise.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you look, I'm not too familiar with all the other industries, of course, but I know people, and of course through guests or friends who work in other industries, and the bond you have between hoteliers is very special. Whether even if you've never been to the US, you can walk into any bar, restaurant, or hotel and talk to an hotelier and tell them you're one too, and instantly you'll become acquaintance at least, and why not even go for a drink and become friends, because there is this bond between hoteliers that's very special.
So tell us a little bit more about the Langham as a product, and the Langham as a potential employer, of course, for all of our students who are in our live studio audience today, or who are watching us live on YouTube.
Of course. The Langham to me is very close to my heart. I've been with the company for, actually, I just had my 19th year anniversary last week or 2 weeks ago. So it's like, it's a company who raised me, really. And the reason for that is because, their values really stick to my values. It's not like I went on board of the company and they kind of implemented the values into me. It was just their values match mine. So I think Langham is a great company to work for that reason. They obviously take very good care of their colleagues and make sure there's a substantial development program for people who want to progress in their career. But it's also a brand that's been able to keep up with times, and although it is a classic luxury brand, has been able to really adapt to the forever changing demographic of guests or colleagues.
Okay. The Langham Sydney, without a doubt, is a stunning property. The building itself, so the bricks and mortar of the property, but also moving from the Observatory Hotel and then rebranding it as a Langham has been a very, very successful exercise. But in your opinion, what makes the Langham Sydney such a special, unique property?
I think the location is definitely a big one. When you first come to Sydney as an international traveler, of course you want to see the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge and obviously Sydney Harbour. But I think the Rocks area is just so special. I mean, again, talking from my experience traveling and living overseas, I've never seen anything like it. I had the privilege of staying in the hotel for 6 months when I first moved to Australia, and I mean, I right away fell in love with Sydney because of it. So I think the location, and of course the fact that during renovations or redevelopment of the hotel, I should say, we were able to keep that fine heritage building, but at the same time have a bit more modern design to it. But we kept the all bedroom doors are still the originals from the observatory days, and so you have that sense of walking into grand luxury with a sense of history.
And of course all the pink.
Yes, the pink.
which is your corporate colours, isn't it? It's
That's
the Langham's colour,
yes.
isn't it?
Yes, and one of the reasons we picked, I should say the team picked pink, is because it is statistically the most loved color, out of any other colors. And of course, when it first came out, especially the male colleagues or guests were a little bit shocked by the pink, and oh, wait a second, my business cards have pink, the pens have pink, but nowadays we love it and we embrace it, and I see the pink pens everywhere in the city or everywhere I travel. I see them, people love them.
So of course that's association with the brand itself, the colour, which is fabulous.
That's
a great
right.
marketing tool for you,
and
it's been very effective, I think. So.
Yes, I think so too. I mean, the design of the properties are very similar across all of them globally, and the pink goes very well with it. There's not one hotel you would walk into and say, well, the pink doesn't work here. It really works really well.
I want to change the conversation a little and now seek your advice, especially as we have here at our Town Hall campus in Sydney a room full of our future hotel leaders and, of course, those watching us on YouTube. But I really want to seek your advice in relation to hotel management. And I want to start by asking you, in your opinion, what do you believe makes an effective department head, assistant general manager, so somebody at that mid-management level that, of course, a lot of our students will be seeking supervisory and mid-management level positions very shortly. So in your opinion, what do you think makes an effective if we say mid-manager or mid-leader. And when you interview that particular candidate, or when you interview for that position, what are you looking for?
Right, well, so I touched a little bit earlier during the interview, but of course, understanding the difference between being a good leader or being a manager. And I think that's where a lot of our middle management colleagues get a little bit confused. And because you're placed in a bit of a position of authority, sometimes it can be, mismanaged or misled. And so I think understanding the difference between the two is very important, but also have a lot of patience because we find that nowadays a lot of colleagues also want to keep growing in their career before they're actually really ready for it. So patience is a great virtue. But during an interview, for me, I always ask one question to all colleagues, actually, and it is, if I ask you what it means to take initiative, what is your answer? And you would be surprised the different answers you get, because I'm looking for a very specific.
So what's the best answer that you've heard in response to that question?
The best answer I've heard was, so I mean, of course, it is a bit of a complicated word, right? It's a one word. I think everyone understands the concept, but putting it into words is can be complicated. But the one I'm looking for is, do the right thing without being told. That's all.
Which is really taking initiative.
That's it. Don't be told.
This is another way of looking at the question.
Do
Great
the right
response.
thing. That's right.
Yeah.
And it goes from, a guest experience interaction to just. I always say, you see a paper napkin on the floor when you walk through the lobby. What do you do? Because you'd be surprised how many people can walk by it, noticing it, and not picking it up. And the person who picks it up is taking the initiative.
Let's talk about you specifically and when you moved into the GM role. And certainly I recall sitting in interviews when I was asked, what do you intend to do in your first 3 months? And the natural response is, you're going to change the world, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. But that's not necessarily the right response. No. So in your 3 months, was it all, let's change everything and let's come in and, we're going to restructure the departments, we're going to give people new roles, new titles and so on? Or was it more observing and building up your team and winning your team's trust?
Right, well, it was definitely not about changing anything. It was about gaining confidence from the team, understanding what is going on and how the clock ticks at the Langham Sydney that was my first 3 months. So that then, yes, of course, after you do that, you're able to gauge whether you have to make changes or not. But my priority was to understand how things worked.
And I know you have staff who have been there and who were there when I was there back in the 90s, who have been there for well over 20 years. So how, in your first 3 months, how did you, specifically with the long-serving staff members, win their trust?
Right.
So what was your strategy?
I'm pretty sure on my first few months or first few days, their immediate reaction would have been great, another one. But I think they're just, again, people who are colleagues that I took time to listen to and understand what the challenges were. And of course, understanding they've been here a long time, they've seen a lot of people coming in and out. I just had to show them that the support they've been seeking for and maybe have not been receiving, I made that a priority to show them that, okay, well, that's what I'm here for now.
I'm going to change the topic slightly and look more about, and talk probably a little bit more about the industry itself. So we've already talked about disruption, but where do you see the industry actually going? So if I say the next 5 years, what do you think are going to be some of the key trends, key developments, and something as hotel leaders that we really need to focus on? Apart from we've already spoken about sustainability. So what else do you think is happening?
Well, I think guest experience is definitely something that everyone is focusing on and is looking to develop their product towards. Whether it comes from an emotional experience or an actual physical experience, depending again on the locations. I think this is a trend that hoteliers should keep an eye out on. I mean, when it comes to the food and beverage aspect of a hotel, for example, again, without going back to sustainability, I think health and wellness is a big topic too, and with hotels having spas, you know, they play off of that a lot. So health, wellness, experience.
We had a very interesting conversation yesterday on this particular campus with some industry colleagues and with some of our academics, and it was in relation to food and beverage within hotels and the direction food and beverage is going in. If you remember a few years ago, certainly the focus was looking at outsourcing your food and beverage operations, so a well-known operator coming in and running your restaurants for you. But there seems to be a reversal of this where hotels are now reclaiming their food and beverage space. What is your views on this?
Well, again, talking from experience on different continents, I would say every country is very different and every hotel should adapt. I mean, Australia, of course, as an example, it can be a challenging setup to run a hotel restaurant from a cost point of view, and of course because of so many choices in the city, right? But I think because hotels now want to have the control of the service they give, and also become more and more creative with their food and beverage concepts, now they're able to reclaim that space, as you said, and come up with a good product. I mean, we just did that at the Langham Sydney. We just opened a restaurant you would have never thought of seeing in a 96-room hotel, but it's a 180-seat luxury buffet meets fine dining, and it's been very successful.
That is fantastic. Well done. Congratulations. And it's wonderful also to hear hotels are now saying, well, we can do this ourselves, and we can probably even do it better than outsourcing it to somebody who might be, you know, already successfully operating their own restaurants or independently operating their restaurants. And I think that's a great example of winning back that space and changing guest perception on, you know, the quality of hotel dining. Because, you know, I certainly remember when I was in the industry, there was, you know, hotels generally did not have a good reputation around the quality of their food and beverage. But now that has totally changed.
Well, I think hotels have been able to attract talents from freestanding restaurants as well. And I mean, again, using the restaurant we just opened as an example, we've been able to get colleagues from restaurants across the city that have great reputation, and it's been a game changer for us.
We currently have 2 PhD scholars who are completing some very unique research in relation to, you know, hospitality and tourism, specifically hotels. One of our PhD scholars is looking at robotics in tourism as a growing trend. What's your views on robotics in hotels?
I don't agree at all. I think that, you know, again, I'm talking for obviously my hotel and the brand I work for, but people who want to stay in these hotels, they're looking for something specific, and they're not looking for robotic, in my opinion. I don't believe it. I think it has its place, don't get me wrong, but not at a luxury level.
I certainly think their research is angled at what is the guest, and really trying to understand what is the guest perception towards robotics in hospitality in hotels, because there does seem to be a lot of mixed emotion and mixed commentary around whether they are going to be effective or whether you can't replace a physical person with a robot to deliver service, as we call it, from the heart.
That's right. You know, I mean, something we specifically train our colleagues on is how to create an emotional engagement with guests, and that's what has made the difference between being a good hotel and a great hotel.
Our other PhD scholar is completing some fairly groundbreaking research in the area of millennials and hotel management, because of course we are now starting to see more and more millennials preparing themselves to move into senior leadership roles within hotels. And of course, the people they're leading, if we look at the workforce, you have more Gen Z, Gen Y, and millennials that we are now actually leading within hotels, which require a different leadership approach. So how have you seen leadership changing in hotels from when we started that very strict regimental approach towards hotel management to a different approach to cater for a younger generation who are starting their careers in hotels, maybe in operative level positions?
Well, I think it's been very noticeable, obviously, the big change. But it starts with the education, in my opinion, and they have to be told what is the truth about once you start working in a hotel, what will happen to you, and not be told that when they get out right away you can get that type of role without maybe going through some bit more tougher days. But I think those generations want to be part of something and part of an organization, even more so than the old school colleagues which were more regimental. And so as long as the industry learns to work with that and actually involves the millennial into the organization, I think it has a great chance of succeeding.
And I suppose that is more about a hotel's ability to change and adapt to its workforce.
Right. I mean, the regimental ways are long gone. And some hotels...
Well, if not, they have to be.
Right. They have, that's right, for many, many reasons. But I think, yes, again, we talked about it many times, but adapting to colleagues, we want to adapt to guests every day. We try to offer new service, be creative, but we have to do the same thing with colleagues at the end of the day.
Gaylord, before we open to audience questions, my final question is, in front of you today, we have our future hotel leaders. What 3 pieces of advice can you offer them in relation to starting their careers?
Right, so be patient is number 1. Work hard. I mean, I'm sure you're being told that all the time, but just definitely continue that. But most importantly, continue to better yourself. Even when you've gone to the position you want to be at, continue to want to better yourself. And don't do it, say you want to be a rooms division manager. Do you want to just be a rooms division manager, or do you want to be the best rooms division manager? Right? Ask yourself that question, and then you'll see what kind of leader you are.
I need to quickly pick up on something you said, because it very much matched and related to something you were talking about earlier on. Work hard.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on that really when you were coming up through the ranks and you were seeking promotion and so on, investing your time, your energy into the hotel really becoming your second family was so important, rather than just a 9-to-5 job. I come and go and then that's it, and hopefully I can get a promotion in the future. And I certainly think from my recollection, from my own experience, is, again, the hotel companies I worked for were my second life, and I invested so much time and energy into the hotel itself. So the notion of simply a place you go to work and go home may not be too effective if you are planning a career in hotel leadership. That really the hotel has to really become your family, your second home.
It has. I mean, I don't believe you're able to work in this industry if you don't love it. Because there's nothing worse than going to work not really wanting to go to work. But in this industry, if you love it, and if it will love you back, and you'll never work a day in your life.
I think that's a perfect way we throw to the audience. You may have noticed that one of Torrens University Australia's brand propositions is essentially love what you do, and we really try and teach all of our students to love what they do.
Absolutely.
And certainly when I think of our students, they are so passionate towards hospitality and hotel management and a career in hotel management, but that love towards the hotel, towards the industry, is so important if you're planning on a leadership career.
That's right.
So let's throw to our audience now. And ladies and gentlemen, at Town Hall, Sydney, and those who have joined us on YouTube, you're coming to us live today. Our guest is Gaylord Lamy, the General Manager of the Langham Sydney. So if you are joining us on YouTube, you have a text number that you can text questions directly to myself that I'll ask Gaylord on your behalf, and also questions may come from our studio audience. So do we have a first question?
I'd just like to come to you from an academic point of view. I'm Dr. Fleur Fallon. What could we do differently or better to support our students to be job ready for for a hotel business? What could we do to support our students? Either something we could do differently or do better. You've probably seen lots of students come through. Is there something you see missing, something that we could do better to fill that gap?
Well, I got to say, particularly with the students coming from the schools, it's quite impressive the level of candidates we've been having. I feel they understand the right grooming, the right attitude, and it's obviously very important for the industry. But I would say things where we can always progress and make improvements is understanding exactly how things are going on between the workplace and the schools, just because you just want them to be prepared as much as possible once they get to the work environment, that there's no surprises there.
Another question.
Very good afternoon, sir. My name is Harshal Thakkar and I'm from India, and certainly this conversation has been really inspiring for everyone sitting out here. One question that I have for you, being a GM, is that when you get a resume or when there's a young candidate who wants to apply for a job, so how important is the qualification, the education for that individual?
It's very important, of course, but I must say, for me, it's not the only component, right? But it's where it starts. It's where it all begins. So, of course, when you come from a reputable school, it always helps. And, of course, any experience you might have may always help. But at the end of the day, it's a lot about the attitude, in my opinion. So I've hired many colleagues who didn't have a lot of experience or didn't come from necessarily the best schools, but because they had the right attitude, it worked. And today, they're some of our best colleagues.
Yeah, I asked these questions because there are several managers who have said that no, experience is all what's needed. But then there's quite a dilemma there.
I don't agree there. But again, it's my personal opinion. I believe that my team thinks the same way as well, people who interview colleagues, and it's been working out really well for us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Gaylord, I have a question from one of our undergraduate students at our Lura campus this afternoon, and they are asking, the industry is changing so much. As a student, how can we keep up with all the different changes? And yourself as a general manager, what do you do to make sure that you understand what is happening in the industry on a daily basis?
Right. Well, there's plenty of ways of doing that, but of course social media is a great one. You have platforms like LinkedIn that help you a lot with this. You have publications, Hotel Magazine or Hotel Management Magazine, etc. But I think the best way of doing it is just to keep the conversations open between you and other colleagues or other hotels. Me personally, I mean, at least hotels within my competitive set, I know every single general manager and I talk to them regularly. And there's no secrets here. There's a couple of things we don't tell each other, of course, but this is how we keep up with the trends.
Mm-hmm. So it's really also not working in isolation. It's relying on other properties and that all-important professional relationships that you have with other general managers and other hoteliers, not only in Sydney but more widely than that.
Yeah, keep your eyes and ears open, really.
I have another question here from George Skirl, who's our food and beverage lecturer at our Flinders Street campus, and it's a great question. He asks, if you were to meet your 18-year-old self, first starting out in the hotel environment, what would be the advice you would give yourself? And I tell you what, I'd be giving myself some pretty strong advice.
Well, that's a great question. It's true, 18-year-old myself. I would say, I think, on a serious note, I would say, try to get maybe more degrees or more specialty degrees into certain fields of the industry, because a lot of it I've had to learn on the go or on the job, which I wish I would have been a bit more prepared for. But other than that, I would say to myself, do exactly what you're going to do. Because I don't regret a moment of it. So,
I suppose so. I mean, obviously you've ended up where you are today, and I think that's thanks to very strong foundations. So just keep doing what you did.
Yes. But of course, you know, and if you're going to find a partner to go through this, I mean, as like a family, you got to pick the right person too. That's a big advice.
I think you're right. The advice I'd give myself is, you know, find a mentor early. Don't wait until you learn about the importance of having a mentor, but find that mentor early. Start to work with those people and learn from those people. I think, you know, there are some very, very good hoteliers out there that are quite willing to give their time to teach younger people the craft of hotel leadership. So find yourself a good mentor and do it early.
Absolutely.
Another question for our studio audience.
Very good afternoon, sir. My name is Akhil, and I'm currently doing my master's. My question here is, you just mentioned like hard work is very important for you, but back in India when I was educating, they told us hard work can be done by anybody, but you need to be smart to do your work. So smart work is more important than hard work. What's your point on that?
Well, I think when I mean hard work doesn't always mean physical work either. And yes, working in a smart way, of course, is important. But what I mean by hard work is constantly want to progress, constantly, you know, give you 100%, 110% even is what I mean by hard work.
So it'll be, in conclusion, it'll be a combination of smart work and hard work.
That's right. I mean, it's not about how many hours you work, but how you use those hours, I guess. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
I have another question here from Dr. Zelko Levaik. He's our program director for our undergraduate program at Lura campus, and he's asking on behalf of his revenue management students. So this is going to be a revenue management question, and knowing Dr. Zelko, he's very passionate about figures. So what are some of the best metrics to track for customer satisfaction, and how could our students learn more about these metrics?
Oh, great question. So it's not about asking guests how did they like their experience, but it's asking whether they would promote the hotel or the restaurant to their friends, families, and colleagues. So we use, at Langham, we use what we call the Net Promoter Score. And that's, to us, our best metrics to gauge whether we're doing a good job or not, or how we can rectify. So the Net Promoter Score rather than satisfaction scores.
Yes, so in other words, whether a guest would recommend the Langham.
Yes, because it shows loyalty.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Another question from the audience.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gaylord. My name is Kevin Feliciano. I would like to ask you about what was the most difficult situation that you've ever been in as a general manager?
So the most challenging or difficult situation that you've had to lead through?
Yes, of course. I would say I'm currently in it at the moment. Look, I think, you know, because I've spent time, my first role being in Sydney, Sydney has a very healthy occupancy and the business has always been really good, but we're going through very challenging times right now, both from a financial point of view, but also making sure everybody is safe and colleagues are at work and able to operate in a safe environment. So I think because of the world's events and, you know, coming off the bushfires during the summer and now what is going on in the world, I think these are some of the most challenging times. But if you're looking for a bit of another example, I think some of the toughest is for me as a GM was to, again, like I said earlier, is to adapt to this new role, knowing that you know, there was no one here all around physically to be your safety net. So that's really my first couple of months in the job.
So really, could we say that probably in today's world, one of the most challenging or difficult areas that a GM has to focus on is crisis management, as they seem to be coming at us hard and fast, and your ability to be able to manage for a crisis and also have relevant plans to actually deal with any crisis is becoming more and more important.
It's number one top priority, I would say. You know, and it's not just about being able to react, but to proact on all of these topics.
It's funny you should say that, Gaylord. We recently have launched a new program, and it's an MBA in International Hotel Leadership. And this particular program is targeted specifically at middle managers who are ready to make that next step into leadership. So it's a program that has been designed by industry, and when we put it together, we asked all of our industry partners, essentially, if they were thinking about promoting somebody into a leadership position, what knowledge and skills would they require? And from that, we were able to scope out an entire MBA, which is fantastic. But they were also very focused on the importance of crisis management and somebody moving into a leadership position to have a very good understanding of how to plan for and how to manage a crisis. So, of course, we built it into the MBA.
Of course, no, I mean, it's necessary. I mean, even at every level with Langham, we actually have crisis management trainings that are done worldwide in every hotel, and how to respond, and of course how to prevent as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. I saw another hand in the audience.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. My question to you is, while pursuing our career in hotel industry, within what time we should take switch, and after what time we should take switch from one property to different property during our growth?
I don't think there's a set amount of time there. I mean, for me, in my personal experience, it kind of always came organically, if I can say that. But I would say, you always think of it as after 3-4 years in a property, your eyes become used to seeing the environment on a daily basis, right? So I think it's always a good refresher to change up. I say 3-4 years is a good time, but in any given positions, I would say at least 2 years.
Would it also be reasonable to say, and just as an adjunct to that question, that don't consider applying for promotion, don't consider leaving until you have done something that has made a positive difference. So you've actually, you've stood out, you've made a difference, and you have something that you can go to an interview and say, I achieved this, and this was the result.
That's correct. Look, if you work for the right company or the right mentors or people, you'll be compensated for your good work. I can promise you that. You won't even have to ask for it. But then you should also learn how to sell yourself, definitely. That's another advice I'll give all the students. Is know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and this way you can be the best candidate for the roles.
Do we have one final question from our studio audience today?
So my name is Pranab. I'm from India. I have a question that is including the negative guest experience. So how you give the importance to the negative guest experience in terms of growing of business?
Look, they're very important, but one thing I've learned though is they're not the only topic you need to focus on. We focus equally on the positive comments as much as on the negative ones. The negative ones, or negative guest experience, obviously we address them as a priority to ensure we can turn the situation around. But what we really try to do most from them is to learn from them, and so we don't make the same mistakes again. There are multiple ways of looking at things, but we also believe that focusing on your strength or on what you do well in the long term will produce more and more positive, rather than if you just focus on the negative and spend too much time on it, you just stay stuck in that time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gaylord, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We have thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. We have all benefited from your words of wisdom. And once again, congratulations on all of your achievements at the Langham Hotel, and we wish you every single success. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, audience, whether you've joined us live from our Town Hall campus or you've joined us live on YouTube from our Flinders Street campus in Melbourne, our campus at Lura in the wonderful Blue Mountains, or further afield. This is Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School Leadership Speaker Series, where we have the opportunity of asking recognised hotel leaders the tough questions about hotel leadership. We will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.